Welcome to Perspectives El Paso. I'm Professor Leon Blevins, Professor of Government at El Paso Community College. Over many years, I have acted and reenacted as Uncle Sam here in the El Paso area. Along the way, I participated in some parades and other events, Veterans of Foreign Wars events, for example. I developed a friendship with a tax collector, Victor Flores, the El Paso County Tax Assessor-Collector. Used to joke a bit about it's kind of suspicious running around with tax collectors. But Victor was on my show a couple of times, and once one of his assistants, Sergio Garcia, I believe it is, was on and came to talk about the tax office and tax collections. I was going to do about this time of this year, this is the spring, April of 2015, I was going to have Victor on and have him do a reenactment of an MIA POW table setting situation, honoring those who are missing in action and those who were taken as prisoner of war. But Victor's health began to fail, and he called and talked to me and said he was going to have to cancel. So we canceled that. But today I do have someone. He's not exactly a replacement for Victor, but he's a man who was given the job, an interim job, to be our county tax assessor collector. His name is Ruben Gonzalez. So I invited him to be on the show today, and he's going to talk about how he got into this position and working with the staff and, in a sense, I guess, training on the job with people that he's now working with. Ruben, welcome to the show.
Mr. Blevins, good to be here.
Congratulations on your new appointment.
Yes, sir.
Now, this is an elective position. Now, tell us a little bit about your background before we talk about how you came to this position. Tell us about who you are, where you're from, where you went to school, general interest that the public might like to know.
Okay. Well, I'm a resident. I grew up in Cañutillo, and I went to school there all the way from first grade all the way through graduation. And I graduated in '69, class of '69. And during those times, as you know, the Vietnam War was going on. I never thought I'd be part of that. But I graduated from high school, went on summer, took the summer off, came back, and me and my friend, we were hanging around together, and came back, and he got drafted, and I said, well, I'm going to be drafted pretty soon, so I'll join. So I joined the Army, and took my basic training here in El Paso at Fort Bliss. And then from there, I went to AIT, Fort Huachuca, Arizona. And by January, of course, I graduated in May, joined in August of '69. And then by January, I was already in Vietnam.
Wow.
So I spent about 18 months in Vietnam. And I was in a combat support unit. And what I did was I was in an aerial recon company. So I spent a lot of time with the pilots discussing missions, and I pretty much worked like a little mini operations there, assigned airplanes on their mission through the 18 months that I was there. Came back home, and they wanted to send me to Germany, overseas again. I said, no, I don't think I want to do that. So they assigned me to Fort Dix, New Jersey. So I spent about 6 months there and visited the New York City, New Jersey, Philadelphia. And by that time, President Nixon was doing a scale down of troops. So they gave me a 6-month early out. Came back in February of '72, and I was hanging around with my friend. He was able to come back from Vietnam also after serving 12 months over there. And his sister used to work for the Texas Highway Department at that time. And they had a vacancy. Since her brother couldn't work there, they asked me if I was interested in applying. So 3 weeks after I left the service, I hadn't even had enough time to let my hair grow. And I got employed. I got hired by the Texas Highway Department at that time. Entry-level title examiner position. So I stayed there, learned the craft, learned everything there is to know about titles and registration. And in a short amount of time, in order to get promoted, you had to leave the city. There wasn't too many openings within the office.
Okay.
So I applied and went to McAllen, Texas. And I got a promotion at that time and became an investigator field auditor. So we checked on dealers and salvage yards and worked with law enforcement and enforcing the registration laws of the state down in the valley. So I spent over 3 years down in the valley learning my craft.
You were like a detective.
Yes, sir. Kind of like an investigator. Checked out dealers, salvage yards, worked with law enforcement, supported the county tax collectors as an investigator. So I worked down in Brownsville, McAllen. Half of that region down there I was pretty well familiar with on dealing with border issues. Well, and again, in other words, in order to get promoted, I had to move away. So I came back to El Paso, got a promotion as an office manager, and started learning the managerial traits of that position. And again, I stayed here for a little bit, couple of years. Another opening came about in Odessa, Texas. Went up there, became an assistant supervisor. And by that time, the manager from El Paso had an opening, so I came back to El Paso and spent a little bit of time here. Got another promotion, went back to Odessa since I was familiar with that area, and spent there 12 years as a regional manager, administering the title and registration laws for the state. Learned all there is to know about managing that office. It was a 15-county area, the size of that region. Came back to El Paso when this gentleman that was here retired and took over this region as regional manager. Of course, I was already well versed on border issues and military registrations and salvage yards and salvage regulations, dealer regulations, auditing trucking companies, and I was well versed in all those aspects of it, so I became the manager of the El Paso region.
I suspect one of the biggest changes in that period of time was computerization.
Yes, sir.
Exactly.
Yes, sir. I was here in El Paso when the lines were still around the old courthouse, when everybody used to register their vehicles once a year, get one set of plates, and everybody used to register by March. And the lines would go around the courthouse, and I'd come in and help out with the chief deputy that was in charge there. Back then it was Doris Chanat. She was the chief deputy. Her assistant was Flora Lopez. And as I came and made my rounds as a title examiner, lo and behold, who was working down there? Entry level, just like I was, Victor Flores. So that was the first time I met Victor. And he was, bringing in license plates for the ladies so they could sell those license plates to the customers. So that was the first time I met Victor. We got along real well. I got to know him, and of course I was with the state and he was with the county. So 20 years later, more or less, I came back in '96, and he ran for office, and I was already in charge and had transferred back to El Paso as regional manager. So at that point, from that point on, I told him, Victor, one of my main responsibilities is to support you. You're the tax collector. I work for the state. That's one of my goals, to support you. Whatever you need, training, anything, any guidance, any advice that you need regarding titles and registration, I'm here to support you. And we developed that relationship, and I helped him throughout the years until, of course, he stayed on till his time of his retirement. I had already spent plenty of time with the state, so I worked for the state in the DMV for over 38 years of managing and administering the title and registration laws for the state of Texas. So I retired in July of 2010. So I rested more or less for 4.5 years before Victor decided to go ahead and retire. And I said, well, that's an opportunity there that I know the work, I know what it entails.
You already know so many of the people.
I knew a lot of the players in this type of environment. I had come in, I knew the problems of the office, if any per se, the challenges of the office. I think I can do that job. So I heard unfortunately about Victor retiring for health reasons. I said, well, I think I can do that job. So I applied, and through that selection process of the county, they went ahead and selected me.
Okay, tell the audience how that process went, how you got the job.
Well, they asked for a resume.
Who's they?
The county.
The county? The
Yes,
county judge and the county commissioners?
Yes, sir. The county HR, their human resource department.
Okay.
They came out with an opening. I became aware of it, so I went ahead and applied and submitted my resume to them. And along with 3 or 4, maybe I think I heard there was maybe about 10 applicants that applied, and they wind down the selection to about four individuals, and I was one of the last 4, and they discussed it, talked about it, and they selected me for the position.
Well, here's a very important question then. Victor was in an elective office. You are now interim in an elective office. You've never run for an elective office before, have you?
Never in my life. Never in my life.
Are you a little bit shaky about this?
Well, it's new. Being with the state, they had a certain set of rules about being involved in politics.
Right.
Basically, don't get involved. Don't accept any gifts, any favors, any benefits that might influence your decision on the people that we regulate. So that's still pretty strong in belief that I have. But I had never applied for public office. I saw people apply. I knew people had applied for positions like the tax collector and county judges and commissioners. Throughout my career down in the valley, down in the Permian Basin, I had seen people go through this process. But I never would think or had thought of that it would be affecting me at one time or another. So I applied, and I know that to continue in this process, to continue in this position, I probably have to go ahead and make a decision to run for office. And knowing what I know and my belief in being a public servant for over 38 years, I feel very strongly that I can fulfill those shoes that Victor did for so many years, and be able to come across to help the public, support the county and their needs, and as far as being able to bring in some income with various ideas and suggestions that I may have. So I think it could be an asset to the county.
Now, when does this interimship run out?
I'm going to finish the unexpired term of Victor, of Mr. Flores. So his term would end on December of 2016. That's when it would end. And of course, between now and then, there's the primaries that are held in March, I believe, and then the general election in November to be going into effect for January of 2017.
So you have to make a decision fairly soon as to whether you're going to file to run for the position or not.
Yes, sir. Yes,
and I would assume that some of the people that helped Victor to get in would be willing to help you to raise money to run for the position for a full term. Am I correct?
Well, I would certainly hope so. Victor was very, very strong politically. He had a lot of friends, and I would hope that if somebody would be out there that would believe in me and the things that I bring with me as far as my knowledge and experience to keep the county going in this office, I would appreciate any support that they may give me.
Well, I've taught politics for many years, so 50 years at least. And I know one of the hardest things to do is to go around asking people for money.
Yes, sir.
And say, I'm running for office. I'm an interim now, but I want to run for the full position. Could you help me with it?
Yes, sir.
So you'll have to go through that if you do that, exactly.
Yes, sir, and it's going to be hard because I'm not accustomed to that.
Exactly. I can tell from your background experience that's going to be a new experience for you.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Well, I can't endorse you. I can't endorse anyone. You may have an opponent or two. I have no idea. But I wish you well in whatever happens and however you handle this.
I thank you for that, and I believe very strongly that the day I can't come across and be supportive to the taxpayer, that's the day I probably would consider not doing this type of job. But I feel strong. I have knowledge behind me and my background, and I think I can do the citizens of this county a good job, or even greater. I'm not sure, but I think I'm very confident of myself and the skills that I bring with me.
I know the office has a variety of divisions you're working with, and chiefs are heads of those different divisions. Tell me about some of the staff that you already knew before you took over this position and you're working with, and they're helping you to work through this fact that's a new office to you.
Well, I do have a good staff. They're very dedicated, they're very knowledgeable, and one of the things that I'm proposing on doing is bringing my skills as a trainer in titles and registration to providing more training, and then consequently with that training I hope to improve on the quality of customer service. And I think I know the mechanics of the statutes, the title and registration statutes, so that I can explain it to them so they can learn and hopefully improve on the quality of customer service. Now, there are various sections. There's a total of 4 offices, 3 substations where they do the same functions, one in Northeast, one in Socorro. We have a mini office, satellite office at Fort Bliss. And then also to help us do the registration and titling aspect, we also have about 11 contracted offices that help us. And they do basically the same functions. But they're private enterprises, and they get a commission out of each transaction that they process. But without their help, we wouldn't be able to issue as many registrations as we have here in El Paso County. We register over 626,000 vehicles a year, or more. So we couldn't do this work without their help, and bring that registration money in, which the commissioners use and the state to build and maintain highways around the state and within El Paso County.
Well, you're having to do a juggling act right now, because I understand it, because we had a change where we're going to have one sticker on our windshield, get the inspection, and then get the license and so on. And it just happened that my wife's car and my cars came due within the last 2 months, last month and this month. And mine came due. So I sent in the amount of money that it came. I got this notice, sent in that amount, was 70 something. And then I went and got the inspection. I'd sent the insurance with that form. They sent my stuff back and said, no, now you need to include the inspection. So I got the inspection, did that. Then I get a notice the day after I mailed it back, and the notice said the state had made a mistake and it was going to be $81 instead of $73 or something. And so I called back down there, and they apologized. A little notice I got from the state, they apologized. And then they said, well, we sent your paperwork to the Fort Bliss office. I said, Fort Bliss? Yeah. I said, well, I'd prefer the Mission Valley office down on Socorro Road. Okay, so they did that, and my wife was renewing a placard. Everything happening at once, all of a sudden. And so I can tell you, they dealt with it very efficiently. It took a couple of days to get the paperwork from Fort Bliss down to the valley, and then to get the placard. They mailed my wife the placard. She got it, I think, yesterday. And the women down there were very patient with me. And I did not raise my voice. I did not get upset. I just said, let's just deal with it and get it done. Now it's done. And we've got our little stickers, individual stickers on our cars. Have you been running into this with this change of process? Believe it
Or not, but we have had some difficulty. It appears that the state really didn't think this out completely. It's come to my attention that they made a lot of errors. And one of them was communicating to the general public, to our offices, the county tax collectors, and there was a lot of, since they worked this program in conjunction with DPS, there just wasn't enough information put out so that everybody that's impacted by this program would know or would be able to respond to the answers that came about. And of course, those registration renewals that are mailed out from the state, they're mailed out and prepared about 4 to 5 months before they're mailed out to the registrant.
They're dealing with millions of vehicles.
Yes, sir. They register over 21 million vehicles a year.
Wow.
So that's a lot of registrations, and they have to prepare those renewal notices, those courtesy notices, about 4 to 5 months in advance. All this time, this information is coming out, and then if they misprint any information on those renewal notices, and they fail to capture the right information, then you have a lot of useless renewal notices that people can't use. Misinformation on dollar amounts for how much it's going to cost them. They didn't include the inspection fees because of the various factors involved.
Right.
So it was a real tough program to convince the public this is a change and this is going to cost you a little bit more. But a lot of people were thinking it's going to cost me more now to get my vehicle registered under this program. And really, it wasn't no increase in fees. It was just a division of the fees, where instead of paying them at the inspection station, they were just paying for their portion of the inspection. The state portion was being picked up by the county as we're agents for the state. So they weren't paying more. They were just dividing the amounts so that we could collect it as a tax collector in conjunction with that registration.
But you see, we simple folks out here in the public, we have trouble understanding all of this. That's the reason we hire and elect people like you to straighten it out for us.
So there was a lot of misunderstandings. And if you stop and think, Mr. Blevins, this program was similar 5 years ago to the Texas Sure program that the state was promoting. Under that concept, the insurance companies, whenever you purchase insurance for your vehicle, your liability insurance, the insurance companies would notify the state that that vehicle owner or that vehicle was covered by insurance. So as a vehicle owner came to the tax office, there'd be a notation in the database that this car is insured. It allows the tax office to go ahead and renew the registration. This program is the same thing, except that now the inspection stations have to, after they do their inspection, they notify the state. We put a notation in our database, the motor vehicle database, and it tells us that that vehicle's passed inspection, so it allows us to go ahead and collect that registration fee plus the inspection fee that belongs to the state, all in one instance, and it's kind of like a one-stop type of deal where we do everything on behalf of the state.
Now, when you were in other parts of the state along the border, did you find similar situations there that we find here? Now, I know Sergio deals with this enforcement of people from living in New Mexico or living here and registering in New Mexico. Did you find some of those similar problems down other parts of the border?
All the time, all the time. If you go down to the valley would not survive if it wasn't for winter Texans. Everybody during the winter time, they come from Iowa, Nebraska, they spend their winter down in the valley. They all display out-of-state license plates, current license plates. Now, the valley, one of the areas there that's very common down there is they have a lot of migrant workers. They go up to Idaho and they work, they register their vehicles up there, then they come back and they have to change out their license plates. And of course, they're parallel to the border, so they have a lot of folks from Mexico with Mexican license plates out there operating. Exactly. And some of those registrations expire. The winter Texans are down there. We have basically the same thing here in El Paso. We have a lot of folks with Mexican license plates that actually reside here in El Paso, and they need a display Texas registration. We have the military here. They are exempted basically because they can operate with their out-of-state plates or their home of record, and as long as the plates don't expire, they can run freely all over the place. No problem. We have people from New Mexico, again, as long as they come and treat themselves as a visit our city, they can go back to their state without any problems. But once they're gainfully employed and they establish residency here, then it requires them to display Texas registration. Now, there is one exception to New Mexico residents where if they commute back and forth, for example, a school teacher that may be here, say, teaching from Monday through Friday here in St. Fabian's, and on weekends they go back home to Las Cruces with their New Mexico place, that's permissible. They're commuting back to their home state, touching base basically, that's allowed. Now, but if that person establishes a residency where they're gainfully employed here and they stay here for more than 30 days, then they would be required to display Texas registration.
Now, you get people to call in if they believe that someone in their neighborhood is violating the law. Is that the main way that you find out about these?
The majority of the cases, yes, sir. That's called our Vehicle Registration Abuse Program, where they go ahead and call in, and then we take their information down anonymously, and we follow up by letter and do a little mini investigation as to the status of that registration. And then we follow up and determine whether that person needs to register with Texas license plates.
Okay.
So it's an ongoing program.
Let me give you a chance to put up your telephone number or a website if you'd like for the public's looking here now and they could give calls on that program or just in your office in general.
Well, at this time, they can call our VRAP enforcement program. They changed their name, so I'm not too familiar with that number just yet.
Okay.
But I believe the enforcement division number is 755-3535. If they can call that number, then they'll get connected to the VRAP program.
Okay.
But there is a direct line to the vehicle enforcement registration abuse program, and I don't have it just
If
now.
there's any doubt about that, we will find that information and scroll it there.
Okay.
So that
Yes,
people
sir.
could be aware of that, because yours is a very important office. We have about 4 minutes left. Any other division that you'd like to emphasize before we close out the program?
Well, we are working very diligently with our dealer community. We're trying to make sure that they are supported by us as far as being able to bring all the title transactions into our office.
Mm-hmm.
So we're working very closely with them, and we're developing a program that's out right now, which I'm getting ready to promote with the franchise dealers,
Mm-hmm.
called the Web Dealer Program.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be a very efficient program where they can electronically send their title transactions to us, by automated means send us the fees, the funds for those transactions, and speed up the process so that they don't have to come in and wait for their license plates and registration receipt in our offices. So we're really thinking real positive about that program, and we're going to be doing that here in the very near future.
I hope you have some real good informational technology personnel down there to
Yes,
keep
sir.
all of this straight and
Yes,
keep
sir.
the numbers in the right place
Yes, sir.
and the right names and the right addresses. It just seems overwhelming to me. Well, I wish you well with your new position, your interim position, and we'll watch for it. If you run for office, we'll know that you're out there.
Thank you, Mr. Blevins. Thank
Okay.
you very much for having me
Well,
here.
thanks for coming in. I appreciate it. Good luck
Yes,
to
sir.
you.
Yes, sir.
And that's another program, a very important program here in El Paso County. It has to do with taxes. Keep on paying those taxes. I'm Professor Leon Blevins at El Paso Community College.